My sister threw my $5,400 custom gaming chair into the fire pit because I refused to pay for her son's private soccer camp. My son gets a future. Trash like you gets ashes, she said. Dad added, her boy is worth more than you. That chair was too good for trash. I did nothing that night. The next morning, she saw the red notice and started shaking. The smell hit me before the sound did. Melting foam, synthetic leather curling into itself, and the sharp chemical bite of burning memory foam that coats the inside of your throat and stays there. My sister Bridget was standing beside my father's fire pit in the backyard with both hands on her hips and a gasoline can at her feet, watching my $5,400 custom gaming chair fold inward on itself like a dying animal. 9 family members were sitting in lawn chairs around that pit. My father Murray was 3 feet to Bridget's left, holding a beer, watching the flames climb through the lumbar support cushion I had spent 4 months saving for. My uncle and aunt were at the picnic table, 2 cousins near the cooler. Bridget's son Declan was inside on the couch, probably watching something on his phone, unaware that his mother had just burned something that took me 2 years of weekend appraisals to afford. The conversation had started 40 minutes earlier at the grill. Bridget had pulled me aside near the fence, away from the burgers and the paper plates, and told me that Declan had been invited to the East Lake Elite Soccer Development Camp in August. Private training, 6 weeks. Professional level coaching, she said. Scouts from 3 college programs, she said. She needed $6,200 by June 15th. I cannot do that, Bridget. Cannot or will not. Both. She had stared at me with the expression she saves for moments when she believes her motherhood outranks my personhood. Then she walked away. I went back to the grill. I thought it was over. An hour later, my chair was on fire. She had found it in the bed of my truck, still wrapped in the moving blanket I used to transport it between my old apartment and my new one. I had picked it up from the old place that morning, the last piece still there. It was sitting in the open truck bed because I had not carried it inside yet. Bridget dragged it across the driveway, through the side gate, and into the backyard. The chair left a scuff mark on the concrete. The headrest caught on the gate latch, and she yanked it free with both hands, tearing the custom leather on the right side. She tipped it into the fire pit the way you dump a wheelbarrow of mulch, one hard shove, and the base hit the grate with a sound that made everyone at the table stop talking. My aunt set down her fork. My uncle looked at Murray. Neither of them moved. Then she poured gasoline on it. The flames climbed through the armrest first, melting the padding down to the aluminum frame, then the backrest, then the seat cushion I had spent 2 hours adjusting when it arrived because the lumber depth was customizable to the millimeter. I had ordered that chair from a specialty manufacturer in Michigan. 4 months of saving, $5,400, shipped in a crate with foam inserts and a certificate of authenticity. It was the single most expensive thing I owned that was not real estate. My son gets a future. Trash like you gets ashes. She watched the flames take the headrest. You sit in a dark room pressing buttons for 12 hours, and you think that makes you a man? You are 33 years old with no wife, no children, no legacy, and a $5,000 chair that does the same thing a lawn chair does. Declan has scouts watching him. Declan has a path. You have a screen name and a room that smells like takeout boxes. I asked you for $6,200 for your nephew's future, and you said no because you needed a chair. So I am giving your chair exactly what it deserves. The same thing I would give every toy in your sad little apartment. Murray took a long pull from his beer. He did not move to stop her. He did not tell her to sit down. He looked at the fire, looked at me, and said it like he was reading a line off a menu. Her boy is worth more than you. He is going somewhere. You are still playing toys at 33. That chair was too good for trash like you. 9 people heard that. Nobody stood up. Nobody said, that is enough, or, Bridget, what are you doing? Or even, Murray, come on. My aunt looked at her hands. My uncle looked at the fence. One cousin pulled out his phone and started scrolling like the fire was not there. The chair burned for 20 minutes. The metal frame held longest, glowing red at the joints before warping under its own weight. The armrest bolts glowed orange at the base before the heat warped them sideways. The hydraulic lift cylinder popped once with a sound like a gunshot, and my aunt flinched in her lawn chair. Nobody else moved. I stood there and watched all of it. Not because I was frozen, because I was counting. I was counting years. 4 years of paying Bridget's car insurance at $2,400 a year. I remember the first payment. She called me from the DMV and said her policy had lapsed because the premium tripled after her third at-fault accident in 18 months. She needed coverage by 5 p.m. or her registration would be suspended. I paid it on my phone while standing in a Walgreens buying toothpaste. That was $2,400 I spent between the mouthwash aisle and the checkout counter. 4 years of carrying her phone on my plan at $85 a month because she said a separate plan was too expensive for a single mom. 3 years of Declan's soccer registration and gear at $1,800 a year because Bridget said it was an investment in his future, and Murray said it was the least you could do since you do not have kids of your own. 4 years of all utilities on the commercial property I own, the one where Bridget runs her tutoring center rent-free at $340 a month. I signed the checks myself, every month, standing at my kitchen counter, writing the electric company's name on the pay-to line, putting my address on the return, and mailing it to a building my sister occupied like it was hers. 4 years of property tax, maintenance, roof repairs, parking lot resurfacing, and a broken HVAC unit I replaced out of pocket for $4,100 because Bridget said the kids could not study in the heat. When the HVAC installer finished, Bridget walked through the front door, felt the air conditioning, and said, "Finally, I have been telling you about this for months." She did not say thank you. She said finally. The rent-free space alone was worth $1,800 a month at market rate. That is $86,400 in free occupancy over 4 years. Add the insurance, the phone, the soccer, the utilities, the repairs, the HVAC, the property taxes, and every other check I wrote because my sister asked and my father nodded, and nobody in this family ever said, "Weston, you have done enough." I did not have the final number yet. I would calculate it the next morning. The number would be $140,000. $140,000 over 4 years. From a man they watched burn beside a fire pit while his sister called him trash. I did not say a word. I turned around, walked to my truck, and drove home. The truck bed smelled like gasoline and melted foam for the rest of the night. If you are listening to this and wondering why I did not explode, why I did not grab the gasoline can and pour it on something of hers, why I did not scream or cry or throw a chair of my own, I need to tell you about a weekend 4 years ago. May 2022, I had just won a bid at a county tax auction for a 2-unit commercial property on Oleander Street. Purchase price, $68,000. The building needed a new electrical panel, new plumbing in the back unit, drywall repair, parking lot grading, and a full exterior paint job. Total renovation cost, $31,000. Current appraised value, which I know because appraising commercial properties is what I do for a living, $142,000. Nobody in my family came to the walkthrough. Murray said it was a waste of money. You are buying a box on a dead street. Bridget said something I have never forgotten. Why would you buy a building when you do not even own a real bed frame? My best friend Porter Kidd drove 2 hours on a Saturday morning. He brought his tool belt, a case of energy drinks, and a radio he bolted to a stud in the wall so we could listen to music while we worked. Porter is an electrician. He did not ask what I was paying him. I had not offered to pay him. He showed up because I asked, and because Porter is the kind of person who answers, "What time?" when you say, "I need help." He spent the entire weekend rewiring the electrical panel so the building could pass inspection. 16 hours across 2 days, running wire through walls, crawling under the raised floor in the back unit, replacing a breaker box that should have been condemned in 2005. He burned his left forearm on a conduit fitting Sunday afternoon and kept working with a wet rag wrapped around it. When we finished at 11 p.m. on Sunday, standing in the empty front unit that would become Bright Path Learning 3 months later, Porter wiped the drywall dust off his hands and said, "This building is going to make you money before your sister makes a single good decision." 4 years later, Porter was right. Except I had not been making money from that building. I had been donating it. Every dollar of rent I could have charged Bridget, every month of utilities I covered, every repair I paid for, went into a business that my sister ran out of a property I owned, on terms I wrote, with a standard commercial occupancy agreement that included one line Bridget apparently never read. No subletting, assignment, or unauthorized use of any portion of the premises without the written consent of the property owner. If you are new here, welcome to Karma Unfolded, where real people share stories about the moments they stopped being the floor their family stood on. Subscribe and stay for this ending. I promise it is worth your time. That night, May 17th, I sat at my desk in my apartment at 10 p.m. The smell of melted foam was still in my clothes. The fire was still in my head. But I did not call Bridget. I did not call Murray. I did not post anything or text anyone or throw anything against a wall. I opened my laptop and logged into the cloud security system I had installed on the commercial property 2 years ago. I had put cameras on the building the same year I put cameras on every commercial property I appraised for clients. It is standard practice. If you own commercial real estate, you monitor it. 4 cameras, 2 exterior covering the parking lot and rear entrance, 2 interior covering the hallway between Unit A and Unit B. I check the feed once a month, usually to make sure nobody has broken in or left water running. I had not checked it since March. I poured a glass of water. The image of the armrest bolt glowing orange in the fire pit was still behind my eyes, the last thing to hold shape before the heat took everything else. That image was the reason I was sitting at this desk instead of lying in bed pretending tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow was going to be different. I just needed to know how much. I scrolled back through the footage. March 2025. A woman I did not recognize was unlocking the door to Unit B with a key. She was carrying a box of supplies. The next day, she returned with another woman, and they spent 4 hours inside. The day after that, a sign appeared in the window. Lux Nails by Kim. Walk-ins welcome. My sister had sublet the second unit to a nail salon. The building I had bought, renovated, and handed her rent-free. And she had given the key to a stranger and started collecting rent. I scrolled forward. Every week for 14 months, Kim or her employee opened Unit B at 9 a.m. and closed at 6 p.m. 5 days a week. Consistent, professional. Like a business that pays rent to an owner, except the owner was not me. Every first of the month, starting April 2025, the same scene repeated on the exterior camera. Bridget walking from Unit A to Unit B, standing in the doorway for 2 to 3 minutes, and walking back with an envelope in her hand. The same walk, the same doorway, the same envelope. 14 times, 14 envelopes, 14 months. I did not know the amount yet, but I knew commercial rental rates in that zip code because I appraised them for a living. I have written rental comparables for 12 properties within a mile of Oleander Street. A unit that size, with that parking count and that foot traffic, rents for $200 a month on the low end. $200 times 14 months, $1,600. My sister had been collecting $1,600 in rent from a tenant operating inside my building, on my property, without my knowledge or consent, in direct violation of the occupancy agreement I wrote and she signed. I almost called her. My hand was on the phone and the footage was still playing on my laptop screen. Bridget walking back from Unit B with an envelope. Same angle, same stride, same Tuesday morning routine she had been running for over a year. Then I looked at the occupancy agreement sitting in my desk drawer. The one I had printed on standard commercial lease paper. The one with the no subletting clause on page 2. I put the phone down. I opened the occupancy agreement and photographed every page. Then I emailed the photographs, the camera footage clips, and a summary of the breach to Leona Thatch, the commercial property attorney whose name Porter had given me months ago when I first started managing the building myself. Leona responded at 11:40 p.m. She confirmed the subletting clause was enforceable, reviewed the footage, and drafted a 30-day breach notice to vacate. She sent me the final version at 12:15 a.m. I printed it on red paper. Not because red has any legal significance, but because I wanted it visible from the parking lot. I wanted it to be the first thing she saw when she pulled into the space I paid for her with my own money. At 5:45 a.m. on May 18th, I picked up Porter on the way to Oleander Street. He was standing on his front porch with 2 coffees from his kitchen, wearing work boots and the same flannel he wears to every job site. He did not ask questions. He brought his phone with a full charge and a timestamp camera app he uses for job site documentation. The parking lot was empty. The nail salon sign was still in the Unit B window. The sky was that gray color it gets before the sun clears the tree line. The kind of light where everything looks like a photograph of itself. At 6:02 a.m., I taped the notice to the front door of Bright Path Learning, 30-day notice to vacate, red paper, black ink. My name, the property address, the clause she violated, and the effective date, June 17, 2026. I pressed the tape flat with my thumb and stepped back. The red paper was visible from across the parking lot, just like I wanted. Porter photographed the notice from 3 angles, time-stamped, geotagged. Then we drove to the diner on Route 7 and ordered coffee and eggs and sat in a booth by the window and waited. At 8:14 a.m., my phone rang. I did not answer. At 8:15, it rang again. At 8:16, a text. What is this? At 8:17, another text. You cannot do this to me. I have 12 students and 2 employees. At 8:19, the voicemail icon appeared. I did not play it. At 8:24, a second voicemail. At 8:31, a text from Murray. Call your sister immediately. Porter looked at my phone on the diner table, watched it vibrate 4 more times, and took a long sip of coffee. She found it. She found it. How long until she calls your father? She already did. The text from Murray came 7 minutes after her first call. Porter nodded. He did not ask what happens next. He had watched me tape the notice. He had photographed it from 3 angles. He knew what happens next because he has watched me do commercial property work for 6 years, and he knows that the paperwork is never the beginning. The paperwork is the middle. The beginning was the fire pit. At 8:32, Murray called. I answered that one. You are punishing your sister over a chair. A chair, Weston. She has a business. She has employees. She has a child. You are going to ruin her life over furniture. I am enforcing the terms of a written occupancy agreement that she signed 4 years ago. Page 2, Section 4. No subletting without the property owner's written consent. She has been subletting Unit B to a nail salon for 14 months and collecting $200 a month in rent on a property she does not own. Silence, not the silence of a man processing new information, the silence of a man who already knew. That is between your sister and you. That has nothing to do with the chair or the camp or the fire. You are right, it has nothing to do with the chair. It has to do with $16,800 that she collected from my building. How much of that did she give you, Dad? He hung up. But I already had the answer. It came 2 days later from 2 sources. The first was the security footage I had missed on my initial review. I scrolled back to March 2025, the week Kim first appeared. There was Murray on the exterior camera, walking Kim through the parking lot and unlocking the door to Unit B with a key I had never given him. He walked her through the unit, pointed at the walls, pointed at the electrical panel Porter had installed, and shook her hand in the doorway. He had brokered the deal. The second source was Kim herself. When Leona contacted her to establish the sublease terms, Kim cooperated immediately. She said Bridget had quoted her $1,200 a month and told her the building belonged to the family. Kim also said she had been instructed to make the check out to Bridget, but that the father was the one who showed me the space and gave me the key. When Leona asked if Murray received any compensation, Kim said Bridget had mentioned a finder's arrangement, but did not know the amount. Leona obtained the amount through a civil subpoena of Bridget's Venmo records, $300 a month, every month, for 14 months. Murray Hale, my father. Murray had helped find the tenant. Murray had collected $300 a month for 14 months as a finder's fee, $4,200 skimmed from the rental income my sister was already collecting from my property. I almost drove to his house that night. The camera footage of Murray walking Kim through Unit B was still playing on my laptop, and the Oleander Street building was 4 minutes from his front door, and everything inside me wanted to set the printout on his kitchen table and watch his face do the thing it does when the numbers are real and the exits are closed. Then I scrolled forward in the footage, and I saw something worse. A loan disbursement. $28,000 from a regional lender I recognize because I have done appraisals for them on commercial properties for the past 3 years. The next morning, May 19th, I ordered a title report on a 114 Oleander Street through the same title company I use for client appraisals. The report came back within hours. There it was, a recorded deed of trust securing a $28,000 business loan against my property. Borrower, Bridget Moss. The loan application which Leona later obtained through the lender's fraud department, listed the property owner as Bridget Moss. My sister had listed my property, a building I own, a building I bought, renovated, and maintain, as her own collateral on a $28,000 business loan. She signed an ownership affirmation for property that is titled in my name. I contacted the lender's fraud department that afternoon with my deed, the title report, and an affidavit of ownership. They confirmed they had opened a collateral fraud review. That afternoon, I checked one more thing. The soccer camp, Eastlake Elite Soccer Development, the one with scouts from 3 college programs, the one that required $6,200 and a June 15th deadline. The one Bridget said Declan had been invited to. The word invited had been doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, so I typed the name into my phone. The first result was the camp's registration page. Open enrollment, all skill levels welcome, $6,200 per session, no tryout required. The second result was a parent review on a sports forum. Decent camp, but nothing elite about it. Any kid whose parents pay gets in. The scouts thing is marketing. No tryout, no invitation, no guaranteed scout attendance. Any parent who pays $6,200 gets a spot. The elite in the name is a marketing word, not a selection criteria. Declan was not recruited. Bridget bought a brochure and called it a future. She had stood beside a fire pit, burned a $5,400 chair, and called her brother trash for refusing to fund a program that accepts walk-ins. If you are still here, press subscribe for Karma Unfolded. This confrontation is about to land, and every dollar is accounted for. May 20th, Leona Thatch's office. She had already drafted and approved the breach notice 2 nights earlier. Now she handled the next phase. The consultation lasted 50 minutes. By noon, Leona had drafted a civil demand for $16,800 in unauthorized sublease income, sent a formal notification to the lender's fraud department with my deed and title report, and prepared a property damage claim for $5,400 for the chair that Bridget burned in front of 9 witnesses. I also filed a police report that afternoon, criminal destruction of property, value exceeding $1,000. The officer took the report, noted the 9 witnesses, and gave me a case number. The report was not dramatic, it was paperwork. But paperwork is how consequences begin. May 22nd, 4 days after the red notice. I drove to Oleander Street at 3 p.m. Porter had told me that morning that the nail salon was already cleared out. Kim had removed her sign, her supplies, and her appointment book within 48 hours of the notice going up. She did not contact me. She did not need to. She was subletting a unit from someone who did not own it, and she knew it the moment she saw red paper on the front door. Bridget's car was in the lot. The tutoring center was quiet. No students that afternoon. The reception area smelled like the lavender plug-in she keeps by the door, the one I bought her because she said it helped the kids focus. Bridget was sitting at the reception desk inside Bright Path Learning. Declan's league trophy was on the counter, the goal one she displayed for visiting parents. The tutoring schedule was on the whiteboard behind her in green marker. She looked at me like I was a bill collector, which in every way that mattered, I was. You need to take down that notice, Weston. You are destroying my business over a misunderstanding. Which misunderstanding? The one where you sublet my property for $16,800 without telling me, or the one where you listed my building as your own on a loan application? Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Who told you about the loan? Nobody told me. I ordered a title report on my own property. There was a recorded deed of trust I never authorized, with your name on it as the borrower. That loan is for the business, for Bright Path, for Declan's future. Everything I do is for this business. That loan is secured by property you do not own. You represented yourself as the owner on a recorded deed of trust. My attorney has referred the application to the lender's fraud department. They will decide whether it becomes a civil recovery matter or a criminal referral. She stood up. The trophy wobbled on the counter. You would not do that. You would not take food out of your nephew's mouth over a loan. You took $5,400 out of my truck and put it in a fire pit, Bridget. Do not talk to me about taking. I set the folder on the desk. Inside, 14 screenshots from the security cameras, each time stamped, showing her collecting the envelope from Kim. The occupancy agreement with the no subletting clause highlighted. Footage stills of Murray walking Kim through the building. The title report showing the recorded deed of trust. And the soccer camp's registration page, zoomed in on the line that says open enrollment, all skill levels welcome. Let me tell you exactly what I found, Bridget. You have been subletting my property for 14 months at $200 a month. That is $1,800 you collected from my building without my knowledge. You violated a written occupancy agreement you signed 4 years ago. Dad helped you find the tenant and took $300 a month as a cut. That is $4,200 he skimmed from income that was already stolen. You listed my property, a building I paid $99,000 to buy and renovate, as your own collateral on a $28,000 business loan. That is a false ownership representation on a recorded lending document. You burned a $5,400 chair in front of 9 witnesses and your father stood next to you and called me trash. That is criminal destruction of property above the state threshold. And the soccer camp you needed $6,200 for does not require a tryout, has no guaranteed scout attendance, and accepts anyone who pays. You lied about every part of it, every dollar, every line, every word you said at that fire pit. She tried 3 things. Each one hit a wall. First, the tears. Her eyes went wet and her voice dropped to the register she uses on Murray when she wants something heavy. I am a single mother, Weston. Everything I do is for Declan. You do not know what it is like to carry a child's future on your back every single day with no help from anyone. You have been carrying $1,800 of my money on your back. You have been operating inside a building I own for free for 4 years. You have had more help than anyone in this family, and you burned the chair of the person who gave it to you. That is what I know. Second, the reversal. You are doing this because of the chair, because I burned a piece of furniture and your ego cannot handle it. This is not about a lease or a loan. This is about your pride. My pride did not sublet a building it does not own. My pride did not forge a loan application. The chair is a police report. The rest is civil and criminal liability that has nothing to do with furniture. Third, the threat. Her voice went flat and hard, the way it goes when she is cornered and calculating. If you go through with this, I will tell everyone in this family that you threw your own sister and her son into the street. I will tell Declan's teachers. I will tell the parents of every student at Bright Path. You will be the villain, Weston, not me. Bridget, you burned my property in a fire pit in front of our entire family while our father called me trash. You stole $1,800 from my building. You committed loan fraud using my property as collateral. You can tell anyone you want. I have the cameras, the title report, and the loan application. Tell the whole town. I will send them the footage. Her hands were shaking, not the dramatic kind. The real kind, the involuntary tremor that starts in the fingers and moves to the wrist when the body understands something the mouth is still trying to argue against. Her left knee buckled slightly, and she put one hand on the desk to steady herself. Her breathing changed, shorter, shallower. The kind of breathing I have seen in conference rooms when a property owner realizes the appraisal does not support the number they were counting on. The trophy toppled sideways off the desk and hit the carpet with a dull plastic sound. She did not catch it. She did not even look at it. 4 physical tells in 5 seconds. Hands, knees, breathing, eyes. The body was done before the voice was. I pulled the armrest bolt from my jacket pocket. Blackened, warped, still carrying the faint smell of melted foam. Set it on the desk beside the fallen trophy. You said trash gets ashes. The notice says 30 days. The sublease says $16,800. The chair burned. Your business will not. She looked at the bolt. She looked at me. She did not speak. This is the last dollar, the last utility payment, the last insurance premium, the last registration fee, the last time I walk into a building I own and find someone else collecting rent on it. Your occupancy ends June 17th. Your car insurance is canceled. Your phone is off my plan as of this morning. If you need to reach me, use Leona Thatch's office number. It is on the notice. I picked up the bolt, walked out. The parking lot was empty except for her car and mine. The sun was directly overhead and the red notice was still on the door, edges curling slightly in the heat, but the text fully legible from 20 feet away. A week later, Bridget sent Pastor Gould. He showed up at my apartment on a Sunday evening, May 25th, wearing khakis and a polo shirt, carrying a Bible he did not open. He sat at my kitchen table and told me that Bridget was struggling, that Declan needed stability, that family is sacred, and that God gives us the capacity to forgive. I did not argue with him. I slid 2 pieces of paper across the table. The first was the security camera printout. 14 timestamps, 14 envelopes, 14 months of Bridget collecting rent from my building. The second was the loan application, with the property owner field circled in red. Bridget Moss. Pastor Gould read both pages. He set them down. He looked at me for a long moment. The kind of look that happens when a man realizes the story he was told before he arrived does not match the documents in front of him. He stood up, picked up his Bible, and walked to the door. "I think this is between you and your attorney now," he said. He did not come back. I almost followed him to the door to explain, to tell him about the chair, the gasoline, the fire, the $140,000, the way my father said, "trash like you," while holding a beer I had bought. Then I looked at the printouts still sitting on the table, 2 pages that said everything I would have needed 30 minutes to say out loud, and I let the door close. Sunday, June 7th, Murray's backyard again, the same fire pit, the same lawn chairs, 16 family members this time, including my aunt and uncle, 2 cousins from Charlotte, and Bridget, who had apparently decided that showing up and acting normal was her best remaining strategy. Murray had been telling family members that I was having a breakdown and punishing Bridget because she touched his video game toy. He had been framing the eviction as an emotional overreaction, not a legal consequence. Half the family believed him. The other half had not heard the details yet. I did not plan a speech. I did not bring a folder. What I brought was my phone. Murray stood near the grill, the same grill where he had watched a $5,400 chair burn 3 weeks earlier, and said to the table, "Weston is going through something. He is taking out his frustration on his sister and his nephew. We need to talk to him as a family." Okay. I set my phone on the picnic table, screen up, and opened the security camera app. Let us start with this. 14 months of footage from my building on Oleander Street. The building I own, the building I bought, renovated, and gave to Bridget rent-free. The footage played. Bridget walking from Unit A to Unit B, standing in the doorway, walking back with the envelope. First of every month. 14 clips, played on fast forward, the same motion repeated like a loop in a fraud training video. My aunt leaned forward. My uncle set down his beer. One cousin from Charlotte stopped chewing. That is Bridget collecting $200 a month in rent from a nail salon operating inside my building. 14 months, $1,600 total. She never told me. She never asked permission. The occupancy agreement I wrote says no subletting. Murray's face changed, not because of the footage, because of the next thing I said. "And Dad, every month, $300 went from Bridget's account to your Venmo. 14 months, $422,200. Finder's fee, you helped her find the tenant and you took a cut from the rental income she was stealing from your own son's building." The yard went quiet. Not the polite kind of quiet where people are waiting for someone to change the subject. The kind where people are recalculating every conversation they have ever had with the 2 people standing nearest the grill. My uncle looked at Murray. Murray looked at the grill. My aunt stood up from the picnic table without saying a word, folded her napkin, set it on her plate, and walked inside. One of the Charlotte cousins said very quietly, "Murray, is that true?" Murray did not answer. He turned a burger that did not need turning and kept his eyes on the grate. His hand was shaking. The spatula made a sound against the grill like a tap on a tin can. The other Charlotte cousin leaned over to my uncle and said something I could not hear. My uncle nodded once. The cousin stood up, picked up his beer, and walked to the driveway. He did not come back. Bridget stood up. "This is family business, Weston. You do not get to put our family on trial at a barbecue. You burned my chair at a barbecue. You called me trash in front of these same people. They heard you then. They can hear me now." She left through the side gate. Declan followed her, carrying his plate, looking at the ground, the way 11-year-olds look when they understand that something has happened, but do not yet understand what. Murray stayed at the grill. He did not look up for the rest of the afternoon. He did not flip another burger. The one he had been turning was black on both sides by the time anyone noticed. When my uncle left an hour later, he shook my hand and said 4 words. I had no idea. The fallout moved in 3 directions, and none of them were slow. The lender recalled Bridget's $28,000 loan on June 12th, 5 days after the barbecue. Leona's notification had triggered a collateral review, and the review confirmed what I already knew. The property listed as collateral was owned by Weston Hale, not Bridget Moss. The loan officer I had worked with on 12 appraisals called me directly to confirm ownership. The recall was immediate. Bridget was given 30 days to repay the outstanding balance of $23,400 or face collection proceedings and a fraud referral to the state attorney general's office. She could not repay it. The $16,800 in sublease income she had collected was already spent, most of it on business expenses for Bright Path, some of it on the exact soccer camp registration she had tried to fund with my money. The camp, the one that accepts all skill levels and requires no tryout, had already cashed her $6,200 deposit. That money was gone. The camp did not offer refunds. Elite apparently only applies to their cancellation policy. Bright Path Learning closed on June 18th, 1 day after the vacant deadline. The last students' parents picked up their materials on June 16th. 2 of them asked Bridget where the tutoring center was relocating. She said she was looking at options. She was not. With the loan recalled, no cash reserve, and the lender investigating her ownership representation, she could not produce the deposit, guarantee, or clean financial documentation another landlord would require. The whiteboard still had the final week's tutoring schedule written in green marker when Bridget turned in the key. She did not erase it. Murray lost his seat on the church deacon board in July. Not because of the sublease or the Venmo payments directly, because the same uncle who had shaken my hand at the barbecue mentioned the kickback to a deacon he played golf with, and the deacon mentioned it to the pastor, and the pastor asked Murray directly. Murray denied it. The Venmo records did not. The board voted him off at the next quarterly meeting, quietly the way churches handle things when the sin is financial rather than dramatic. His name was removed from the welcome committee roster. His parking spot near the side entrance, the one reserved for deacons, was reassigned. He told my aunt it was because of restructuring. She did not believe him. Bridget's criminal exposure on the loan fraud remained open through the summer. Leona said the lender's fraud department would decide whether to pursue a criminal referral or settle for full restitution. Either way, the application with my property listed under her name was now a permanent part of her lending history. No bank would touch a business loan application from Bridget Moss for years. The police report on the chair went through routine processing. An officer contacted Murray as a witness. Murray confirmed the destruction had occurred, but called it a family dispute over a piece of furniture. The officer noted the statement, and the case remained open. The $5,400 was above the threshold for criminal destruction of property in our state. Leona added it to the civil demand alongside the $16,800 sublease claim. Murray could be held jointly liable for the $4,200 portion he received. The total direct civil claim was $22,200 for the unauthorized rent in the destroyed chair, not counting legal fees, the loan recall, or the $6,200 soccer deposit that was never coming back. I did not see Bridget's final day at the building. Porter told me about it. She came alone on a Friday morning, 2 days after the deadline, to collect the last of Bright Path's supplies. The tutoring tables were still there. The folding chairs were stacked against the wall where the reading corner used to be. The whiteboard still had Thursday's schedule written in green marker: 3:30 p.m. algebra review, 4:15 p.m. reading comp, 5 p.m. SAT prep. She did not erase it. Declan's league trophy, the gold one she displayed on the reception desk for 4 years, was sitting where it had fallen during the confrontation. She picked it up, set it down, picked it up again, looked at it like she was trying to remember which season it was from, walked to her car with it under her arm. She did not lock the door behind her. Porter said she sat in her car in the parking lot for 9 minutes before starting the engine. There was nothing left in that building worth protecting, and the woman who had operated it for 4 years could not bring herself to close the door on the way out. Murray called me once. in late June. I let it go to voicemail. He said 12 words. "You did not have to do this to your own family, Weston." I saved the voicemail, not to listen to again. To remember that your own family is a phrase people use when they want you to forget that your own family burned your things, stole your rent, forged your name, and called you trash while you were standing right there. July, a Saturday night. My new apartment, the one with the second bedroom I turned into an office. The room porter helped me set up, running the outlets and mounting the monitor arm the same weekend I moved in. New desk, new monitor, a basic $200 office chair from a warehouse store. Not a replacement for the one that burned, but a chair that does what a chair does and nothing more. I did not buy another custom chair, not because I could not afford it, because the chair was never the point. The chair was what they saw. What I built was always underneath it. On the desk beside the monitor, sitting on a small square of black felt, the fire-warped armrest bolt from the chair Bridget burned, blackened, twisted sideways from the heat. I had gone back to Murray's yard the morning of the notice, 5:30 a.m., before anyone was awake, and pulled it from the ash pile with my bare hands. The ash was cold by then. The bolt was cold too. It weighs almost nothing. It holds almost everything. My phone buzzed. Bridget's name. The third call this week. I did not pick it up. The monitor glowed. The bolt caught the light the way metal does when it has been through something it was not designed to survive. I logged in. The room was quiet except for the hum of the system and the click of the mouse and the sound of a man sitting in his own space, in his own building, spending his own money on his own time, and owing nobody anything. Some things burn and leave nothing. Some things burn and leave the bolt that held them together. I kept the bolt. I let everything else turn to ash. If this story reminded you of a time when someone burned something you built and expected you to rebuild it for them, share it. Leave a comment. And if this is the first time you have heard a story on Karma Unfolded, subscribe. There are more stories here from people who stopped being the fuel for someone else's fire. Thank you for listening.